in like 2 minutes, so I'll rejoin, and because for some reason I'm not able to use my camera at the moment, but I'll be in front of my computer in a couple minutes.
No problem. Emma, you take it away. I think
Great.
we can.
Yeah, good morning, Emma. Good morning, Pretty. I'm trying to turn on my computer, which is it's strange. Oh, sorry, not my computer, my camera. It's strange. I don't know if you guys can see on your side.
We can see just your name.
Okay, cool. I'm now attempting to share my presentation, or at least to share my face as well. I'm not sure how. I mean, I've been able to.
We'll start off with a few housekeeping, and then Emma will bring you on to speak. So, so you've got a few minutes to figure that out.
Sure thing. I'm here. I'm on Zoom webinar, which is, I mean, perfect. Nothing's different from what I've done in the past, except for I'm not sure how to share my presentation, and I can't.
Do you have a video icon at the bottom there on the panel?
No, I'm not seeing any of that, Emma. I'm seeing a chat. I'm seeing raise a hand and a Q&A, and there's an audio sign on the left. Normally, there would be a video option.
Panelist.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's what it is. You are, okay. All right. Try now. Yeah, so actually, if you're not a panelist, you're not going to be allowed to share video.
There we go. There we go. Thank you, Emma. Okay, so before I show my ugly face, let me go get some water. See you in a jiffy, guys.
Okay, great.
All right. Yeah, go ahead, Emma.
Great. Well, welcome everybody. Yeah, thanks for joining us. Happy Friday, maybe Saturday morning for some of you. Is that possible? Other people are on the other side of the world. New Zealand, Australia, possibly. But thanks for joining us. I'm Emma, and I work at AFSTAT. And I wanted to welcome attendees, of course, and then everyone else from AFSTAT. We have, of course, our lovely Kisette, who is tagged as New Borders, his beautiful smile. We have Preeti below, well, depending on where your screen, I don't know how you do these presentations when you're all different squares. So we have Preeti, she is with us at AFSTAT. We have Colin and Coach Bafana, of course. And I believe we also had Marcus Wood at one point from Washington Youth Rugby. And I'm not sure if people are trying to turn on their videos. Philip is maybe also, I'm sorry, I'm going to do a tiny bit of housekeeping. See if Philip, you're on the attendees list. Let's see. Philip is also with us at AFSTAT. Nope, sorry, Philip, you're not. I don't see you. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Kisette, did you want to introduce Colin?
Yeah. So, Colin is a really good friend of mine. Has coached for many years. Coached the Harlequins in England in the English Premiership. Is responsible for some of the best England athletes that are currently in the England national team, for just developing them when they were younger players. Guys like Chris Robshaw, who's recently come over to the MLR, playing for San Diego. So I was surprised to see him because it's late. So I appreciate you coming on. I just wanted you to maybe take a couple minutes to say a few words and obviously offer advice. You've seen a lot in this game. There's a lot of coaches that are trying to improve their coaching philosophy. So just maybe have just say a few words.
Well, great to see you all, and thanks for having me on. One of the things I firmly believe in over all the years, I've been coaching for more years than I care to remember, but I think one of the most important things I learned very early is you're never too old to learn. So from my point of view, an opportunity to listen to somebody else speaking, to share ideas, pick up new ideas, I think is absolutely a lifelong obsession with me, and should be with everybody. In terms of developing coaching philosophies, it's fundamental to the process of coaching. we use the word philosophy and it sounds very highfalutin. And everybody, even if you're not even aware of it, you all have your philosophy because you exist. So we don't exist in a vacuum. All the things that you've experienced before will shape the way you behave, the way you coach, the way you teach. And that is what ultimately shapes your philosophy. So for me, it's been a fantastic journey. I've worked with some amazing coaches. Way back in the I suppose in the 90s, I went out. I was working in Zimbabwe, and I made it my business to go to Durban. I was there for 3 years. 3 years on the trot to the Natal Board Coaching Conference. They had at that time their director of rugby was the ex-Springbok coach. He was actually a Zimbabwean. For his bloody name now. Maestro, what's his name? Come on.
McIntosh?
That's it, McIntosh. Really good bloke. I've worked with Dick Best, who coached England when at Harlequins. I've been to Australia to work with, albeit for short little visits, 2 weeks with the Waratahs. Went to New Zealand with the Iran's International Rugby Academy there. So I think it's really important to take in lots of different influences, listen to lots of different people. I came out to America, actually, to American football. I went and spent a week with the Eagles, just to see how they do things and what can we learn from their game. I went to Australia for Aussie rules. I just think it's really important to keep an open mind and learn from as many different people and different sports and different organizations as you possibly can. And sometimes you actually reevaluate what you've been doing and you realize, actually, you know what? We're better than them. we are doing it right. But equally, there's times, why? We can learn from those people and do something slightly differently. So I think it's a fantastic opportunity. And so thank you for letting me come on board.
Thanks, Colin. Thanks for being a good friend of AdStat and Cairo Sports, and we're grateful to have that relationship. Emma, go ahead.
Super, thanks. Yeah, thanks, Colin. And I now see we have Brian and Marcus, both welcome. So I wanted to quickly have you guys talk a little bit about the partnership between AdStat and Washington Youth Rugby and how a lot of this is made possible by that. And so I'm going to throw it over to you guys. If you'd want to speak a little bit about your background and where you came into to learn about AdStat.
Okay, well, thank you. I'll take the lead for us, for Brian and I. A little bit about our background. Brian and I were teammates, club mates for Washington Rugby Club here in Washington, D.C. For a number of years. And one year, the guys got together and just started talking about youth rugby and what would be a great idea to just start teaching kids the game of rugby, just a very simple form, sevens, non-contact. And in 2004, Washington, D.C. Youth Rugby was born. And within a few years, we grew exponentially, and we competed in a summer touch competition against suburban clubs in neighboring Maryland. Great experience, different age groups, and I think it allowed us to build a foundation as far as grassroots rugby here in the Washington, D.C., specifically in D.C. in the city. Like I said, there's a presence in the suburbs in Maryland and Virginia, but we were able to bring grassroots rugby to Washington, D.C. So over the years, we've had boys high school teams at a couple different high schools, a girls high school team, and a number of kids who've come through our program who, like in the rugby tradition, that they stay connected with us. And they still call us Coach Marcus and Coach Brian, but these are all adults now. They have families and things like that. So, we're excited to see how some of these young people have come through our program, have not necessarily matriculated into high-level rugby, but they're all phenomenal people and very successful in their lives. And we'd like to think that we had, rugby had something to do with it, not necessarily us. The partnership came through this cassette reaching out to me. We met last year at I think it was an informal cocktail, I believe, and it hosted Tendai was there, and Old Glory players and coaches from Major League Rugby. So him and I we formed a rapport there and just kept in touch over the pandemic, and have had some discussions. So we see it as a wonderful opportunity to keep expanding our brand here in DC, and helping to grow rugby, and to hopefully expand the opportunities for the young people that come through our program. We actually have a young man playing at Kutztown University. I think he has all the potential of the world to probably hopefully play for Coach Friday one day in sevens. But you know, and possibly a couple young ladies going to play in college next fall or in 2 years. So we're continuing to grow, and we're looking for any partnership that will help us foster the development of rugby, not just here in DC, but in the United States in general.
Yeah, just to add my own little personal story. I moved to DC to play rugby. I picked up rugby in college, and it literally changed my life. I'm from a very small town outside of Pittsburgh, and I never left my small hometown if it wasn't for rugby. And I was playing for the Pittsburgh Harlequins. We had a game against Washington, and so I made a weekend out of it. And the guy was like, "Hey, come down here, play for us." And I've traveled the world. I've been to South Africa. Been in New Zealand. I've been, I played in Wales, in Scotland, in Italy. I'm not that good. I just, travel to play. But, rugby changed my life. And, not saying we're necessarily changing lives, but it opened up doors for me, and we're doing the same thing. I'm passionate about the sport because of what it's done for me. And we're just trying to do the same thing for kids in DC. And like I said, we're grassroots, and we're lucky enough to, Paul Sheehy from, Old Glory and Sheehy Automotive is on our board. And unfortunately, before COVID shut us down, Tendai came out to coach our kids. He was one of our coaches. We got a couple of practice sessions with them with the high school kids. And Cassette, you were there, watching the kids watch the video, from the World Cup. And they're like, "Who's this guy?" And then they see him on the big screen on the world stage, and it was instant respect right there. So yeah, we're just excited. We open up our doors to anyone that wants to come and work with us. And Marcus is grew up in DC playing rugby as well, at high school, and we're just passionate about getting as many kids playing rugby as we can because we've seen what it's done for us.
Cool.
Thank you so much, guys, for your for your partnership and for all the work that you guys are doing. Anything we can do to help. If you guys feel like you can plug into what they're doing, feel free to reach out to them, and let's continue supporting them. Thanks for making the time, guys.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, my daughter's only 3, but I see you take I think was it starting at 7 for girls, so we'll sign her up. 5.
If she can follow directions and catch a ball and pass a ball, then she's good.
Yeah, we're over in Maryland, so I'll send her over.
We had a 4-year-old, but he peed on the coach, so maybe.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We'll wait a little longer. Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks, guys. So now I wanted to just briefly introduce Coach Bafana, who is due a huge congratulations on his new position as the under-20 Junior Springboks head coach. So last time we checked in with you, Coach Bafana, you have been promoted basically since last time. And he has many years of coaching under his belt, including the Lions and Super Rugby. Here's the rugby player. Coach Bafana, with a little more ado, over to you.
Oh, sorry, I'm on mute there. All right, make the screen bigger, show my camera. No, don't start the video. Oh, there we go. Good morning, everyone. I'm not sure if everyone can see me. It's quite early in South Africa. It's about 1:30 in the morning. So, yeah.
Morning over here too.
Yeah,
Good evening.
If you hear some crickets out here, please forgive me. It's a bit silent. But anyway, thank you so much for having me. I think it's brilliant that we can have this platform. Colin, big fan, mate. We've never met before, but big fan and much respect for the work you've done at Quins, for the work you've done with Zim Rugby as well, and for all your involvement. But firstly, Emma, thank you so much for the word of congratulations. I'm super excited and super privileged, to be quite honest, that I get this opportunity, not for anything, just because we get to share and we get to chat about the game a bit. And I guess that's rugby. It's probably the biggest difference between our sport and many other sports is the fact that we all get an opportunity to share. And yeah, most rugby coaches are quite keen, I think, generally. So if somebody says they can't see me.
We can see you.
I can
Okay.
see you.
I can see you.
Maybe, Brian, maybe toggle your screen so you can see all the panelists up on the top right. There's a view option.
Yeah, we can see. Carry on, coach.
Okay. Sorry about that, Brian. Anyway, yeah, I think the message I was trying to get across is the values of the game are so, I mean, they're so ingrained in us, and they're so instilled in the fact that anywhere you go in the world, you're bound to meet somebody that's involved in rugby. You're bound to have a good conversation, probably have a beer along the way. And before you know it, you form good bonds and a good friendship. I really believe it's one of the few games that you get that type of thing. And maybe it's not too bad that we keep holding to some of the old amateur, ways of doing things. As the game gets more and more professional, I keep thinking about 16-year-olds that get into academies in football. I mean, they sort of get into that environment, and from then on, they're full on pro. The camaraderie, just the good values of being good people, forming good friendships and making memories almost doesn't exist in that space. And I could be wrong. I just think, and it's my opinion, I do believe that they're probably missing out on some good elements of life in terms of friendships, future bonds, and just really growing to be good people. Again, just an opinion. It's not a fact. It's just what I think. Just going to try share my screen, and please tell me what you see. There we go. That's that presentation. Share.
All good.
Yeah, everyone. Brilliant. Well, I do believe we are at the Edsted Rugby webinar, so I thought it was quite appropriate to start with that. And the biggest part of the conversation from my side is really trying to think. I know Edstats are focused on, well, as the name says, they're focused on the statistical side of the game with a bit of coaching. But from where I'm sitting and in what I want to sort of get across today is to figure out what is our input from a training point of view, what is our input in terms of what we want the outcome to be come the weekend, come the end of the campaign, come the end of our rugby coaching cycle. What do we put in, and ultimately, what do we want to get out of that? Because I think it's quite important to figure that out. And most coaches, we never really want to talk about winning, which I understand. There's various reasons and good reasons for it. We talk about the process, and I'm totally on board with the process, 100% on board. It's important to have a process. And it's quite amazing that the more you get process driven and the more you get that right, how the results just start looking after themselves. So those two go hand in hand. But then I keep thinking to myself, well, if we say process, what exactly do we mean by that? And it's a question I'm throwing out there initially, because I just want people to think about that. I think Colin touched on something earlier. So we all have a philosophy, we throw it around, but most of us don't really sit down and think about, well, what is my philosophy? Maybe as an individual, but most of us have a good rugby philosophy. I'll start with that. I think most coaches have got a philosophy of theirs. So it seems like a really dumb question, but the question is exactly that, is that if we say process, what are we trying to get out at the end of the day? I'm not sure if I just want to look in the chat if anyone can just answer that. If you say you want to be process driven, what exactly are you trying to achieve? And it's, if I can just get some write-ups, it doesn't have to be a long write-up on the side there. Just want to see what people think about that, because I think it's a good way to start this conversation. I'll give it a few more secs and we'll take it from, see if anyone's put up anything. Or you can just unmute and chat. It's also good. I see there's 42 people here, so. Somebody's trying to speak, but they're on mute.
Coach Bafana, I think some of the, I think if you're not a panelist, it won't allow you to speak, but the chat box is great.
Okay, brilliant. I'd like to see some answers in the chat box, at least some thoughts in the chat box. So I think it's a good way to sort of get going.
Yeah, if you look down on the bottom, there's a, like, right next to share screen, there's chat. If you click on that, you'll see a bunch of people asking questions.
Brilliant, brilliant. Okay. Oh yeah, I can see that. Oh. Yeah, I'm seeing the questions. I'm seeing the questions. Not getting enough of the. Not getting enough of the. What's the process drive? What's the processes? That's really what I'm trying to drive at. But it's okay. It's okay. It's an interesting one. And again, there's no right or wrong. That's the beauty of the game, by the way. There's no right or wrong. You believe what you believe for whatever reasons you believe in. So please don't ever feel that you might get a few wrong answers. I'm not here to judge. But as I move on, if no one wants to add to that.
Yep, we got a process question.
Oh, brilliant. Please read it for me. I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah, sure. So this is from Stuart. It's a process for me is giving players opportunities to work out what they can do in different situations.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, Stuart, that's nice. I like that. So it's giving the players the opportunity to work out what they can do in different situations.
Right.
Brilliant. Yeah.
And then Brian says steps taken and methods used to coach.
Oh, brilliant. I like that too.
And then sorry, go ahead.
No, it's steps used and methods. Sorry, I just want to repeat that right.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
It's yeah. So steps taken and the methods used to coach.
Okay, cool. And you said you got one more.
Yeah. Well, two now. Coach, this is from Joel. It says, Coach, I focus on each of my recruits and go to parks near their house and game game-oriented. Sorry, the text formatting on Zoom isn't very well, so it's a little bit hard to read. I focus on each of my recruits and go to parks near their house and game-oriented coaching. My process is to focus on each kid and build slowly. Then game-oriented coaching through versions of sevens. That's my process.
I like that. I like that. And again, there's no right or wrong, but thank you so much for sharing, guys and ladies. I think it's important that we almost get involved in a conversation, if I can call it that way. I look forward to that. But I think most of those answers are pretty on board, and they sort of wrap up the idea of a process. It's what am I doing in between, what am I doing during the season and throughout the campaign to try get the best out of the player and to try get us to a certain outcome, and whatever that outcome might be, because it doesn't always have to be winning. There's just different outcomes in essence. But I'm going to move on.
If you have just 1 second before you move on, Brian wanted to add some steps, if you don't mind me reading them.
Brilliant. I look forward to that, please.
Okay, so here a process to get to the bottom line, which is the win. Steps. Number 1, recruit. Number 2, train. Number 3, develop. Number 4, structure. Number 5, win.
I like that, Brian. I think obviously those are the steps to your, those are steps to your process. But, if you talk about recruiting, it in itself, it's got a process. You talk about winning, and I love that part of winning, and not because I'm fanatical about it, just because in itself, it's a process. And that actually bodes well to for our next slide, which is preparing for the win. I'm going to throw more questions out again, so please forgive me. I'm not trying to catch you out or anything like that. I'm going to talk through these, and as I talk through these, we can come back again and people can start writing on the side and we can engage in further conversations. So, okay. Sorry, somebody saying something?
No.
Okay. I'm talking about preparing for the win, because when you run out into the game, and the reason I speak about this is we speak about processes. If they follow the processes, the results will look after themselves. And I know what that means. But ultimately, when we say the results are going to look after themselves, what we're saying is that we want to see a good game. And in that good game, we're hoping that we are on the right side of it. Sometimes you're not on the right side of it. And therein comes in the process aspect. So if your processes were good and if the performance was good, but the result didn't come, what then? And that's always an interesting question, because as coaches, we then get, not all of us, we then get wrapped up in the emotion of the result as opposed to getting wrapped up in the process in itself. I'm not sure if anyone can sort of relate to this kind of thing. You know, you've played a good game, your players have given it all, you somehow lost, and you gutted because you're a competitor. I wonder what your Monday looks like. I wonder what your team talk post-match looks like. You know, just interesting, based on the fact that you've lost the game, regardless of whether your processes were good or bad. So, and sometimes you win a game. You win a game at 99 that you should have never have won. But then what takes over? You know, am I upset because our processes weren't good? Or am I just elated because the boys managed to burgle a win on the day, and that changes the mood for the following week? So these are some of the interesting dilemmas that we can have as coaches, and good conversations as well about that. And again, it's important to understand that all these things talk to each other. So it's not one or the other. I think the reason we play sports and we love sport is that competitive edge, is to bring out the best in us. And most of us are competing because, yeah, we enjoy the win, and we should never shy away from that. But I'm going to move on. Colin touched on the team's philosophy, or an individual's philosophy. So then I've got that question, is to say, what is your team's philosophy? You don't have to answer me right now, but the way I see your team's philosophy is, what is your way of play? What is the soul of your team? What is the DNA of the team? So if I'm looking at this team and I'm saying, geez, I can see that's Emma's team. I know that's Emma's team. And if people said, why? Like, geez, man, their set piece is fierce. They're competitive at every set piece. Well, no, that's definitely Kisset's team. Why? Man, look at them have a go behind their 22-meter line to go score a 100-meter try. But not only that, look at the skill set they've got. You might look at Bafana's team and say, well, not a whole lot going on there tactically, but man, they're relentless. They just keep coming. They don't go away. They're just fighters. So that's quite interesting, because we all have different philosophies. And sometimes, without overcomplicating it, because we want to cover so many things, I'm always interested to think, how can I simplify it to sort of figure out or give the easiest and the simplest route to say, well, that is the soul of my team, and that's what my team looks like. Because I know when we write our philosophies, we always feel like, geez, but I've missed something, you know, because I want to be a team that's good at set piece. I want to be a team that's got good culture. I want to be a team that runs the ball. I want to be a team that's got good at, we want to be good at all those things. And ultimately, that's what we're striving for. But, you know, again, the beauty of the game, there's different ways to achieve that. So we'll get to that. So for me, that's interesting, because I think your philosophy drives a few things within your team. I'm a believer that your philosophy is a big driver in terms of what will make your team win games. So again, we keep coming back to that. I mean, this philosophy, this process, because in your team trying to win games, they've got to follow a certain process. And in that process, the philosophy of the team comes out. I'm hoping I'm making sense, and please feel free at any time if there's any question or anything that doesn't make sense, because actually, let me reframe this. If there's anything that doesn't make sense, please feel free to write in the chat box, and that will get referred to me, because it's important that we get to the bottom of this, and we really come out of this conversation with some sort of clarity to what I'm getting at.
I think Joel asked, I'm not sure if it's a question or more of a statement. I think it kind of goes with what you're saying. He wrote video analysis, then work on better support if that's what we're missing. Teaching kids or adults in America to learn multiple positions so they can see from different views and be able to replace anyone that is down or late for a play. Have the team know the direction of play so weak wing can involve himself as an extra forward. I like to play with an extra forward.
Okay, brilliant. I'm guessing this might be related. I think that might be linked to the processes thing, but if that's a team's philosophy, I like that as well. I think it's always good to, I think you spoke about players playing in multiple positions. Yeah, I think it's always good to upskill players to be able to fulfill any role. Multiple, I don't know if that makes sense. I think multiple positions, rugby gets so caught up in positions themselves. I think positions are good in the sense of where the game starts and how the game flows at a certain level. But the way I sort of see it is it's not so much multiple position, it's players need to fulfill different roles at different times of the game. That would be my sort of take on that. But yeah, I like that, Joel. So we spoke about what will make your team win games. And most of the time we're going to come to game strategy, because at the end of the day, philosophy leads into your game strategy, because that's how you build it, because the philosophy is written down, but you still need to have a strategy to that philosophy. You know, it's key to sort of understand this. And whatever your game strategy is impacts your skills and the skills that you're training. And the reason I talk about this again is because I'm a massive believer that your skill sets, it determines the quality of your game, and it determines the capabilities of your players. And that's, you know, you can never get away from that. You know, if you're going to play running, rugby, etc., you need to have a certain skill set. You need to have a certain level of conditioning. You need to have a certain level of game understanding as to where the space is and how to get to that space. And if you don't have that, it's quite difficult to get that quality. You might still implement a running game. However, the quality might, the outcome, or the output rather, might not be as good as you want it to be. Links to the team philosophy. And again, I ask the question, you've got to always understand as well what will help make your team win the games. I'm going the opposite direction. Brilliant. There's the next one. What are the threats to your game model success? This is, again, very interesting. So, at least in my eyes, if you're coaching your own team, and most defense coaches will tell you, no, with this type of defense, we're vulnerable in this area. But whenever we think about our philosophy and whenever we think about game strategy, I don't know if many people really think about, well, what are the threats to this? So if I play this way, or if I use this philosophy, you know, what are the shortcomings? And how do I cover, or not, you don't want to make up for those shortcomings, but how do you sort of cover those shortcomings? Because I think it's important that your players are aware of that. They need to know that, and you as a coach, you need to be aware of that. I play in this way. This is the philosophy of the team. This is our strategy. We might come unstuck if another team presents us with this. And what do we do if we come unstuck? And you can't have 10 plans. At least in my eyes, you know, when players always ask me, Coach, what's plan B? And I say, well, plan B is to make plan A work. You know, that's what I go with. And then I sort of say, after that, then we can go to plan C, and that's where it stops and starts. Or that's where it ends rather, not stops. Yeah, that's where it stops. You know, but I say that not because I'm stubborn in my thinking. I say that because it's important that they believe in the philosophy, and they see what we're trying to achieve with the strategy, and that's a collective thing. And you know, I'm just going to lead. I'm talking a lot. I really wanted to show a video before I move on. And one of the things that I always address with the threats to the game model success, I actually encourage our players. I encourage them to go and look at our clips and say, if you're playing against us, how would you beat us? If you're playing against us, how would you beat us? And I think that's always quite an interesting conversation to have. For the players, not to blindly just follow your system, to understand that as a team, we actually this is where we're vulnerable, and they can recognize those moments in a game, and they can adapt. Then we can start training how to adapt to some of those moments in a game. And I'm going to come to that a bit later when you start talking a little bit about training. I'm going to stop my share, if you guys don't mind, and show my face again. And that's because
Can we take 2 seconds, because we have a lot of chatter in the chat room, but only a few that actually have a question mark. So I'm really sorry if I don't read everyone's. I'm just gonna go for the ones with the actual question marks.
Brilliant.
So
I've stopped the share, so if you can see me. I'm looking forward to that. And by the way, this was my idea that I had in mind. I wanted this to become a conversation. I know the plan was for us to finish at 2:30, which is, I mean, it's midnight for me. So, but I'm trying for us to engage in conversation.
1 o'clock over here, so don't worry.
yeah, but the idea was for us to engage in more of a conversation, because if it just became a one-sided affair, this is how you do things, this is how you should do things, then I think we'd just get lost in it all. So
if Philip, I'm gonna bring up Joe, because I think he had, I'm gonna bring him up so he can ask.
Okay.
So he can ask.
Oh, his question himself.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Coach.
And
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Joel, can you hear you? Thanks.
Oh, great. I had a few questions, but basically in America, we have a lot of raw players. So it's a lot easier to try my silly philosophy of using the wing as an extra forward sometimes, if he knows the gameplay per se. But my one question, I would say, I used to play high level in New York, and I'd ask an Australian coach, like, what's the best defense? I'm always getting overloads here at wing and fullback. And he explained, like, on a line out, we'd have our weak wing come straight across. So we'd have double wings almost on defense. Now people are having like shut the gate kind of defenses where the centers come up. Now we're still pretty raw in America. So to me that works, but also we could go inside out slide defense and use the sideline to push them out. You know how New Zealand used to have the guys bunched in tight and come up and out, even in sevens. What defense do you recommend? And obviously it would be great to learn more than one or two for each team. But in America, we have a lot to teach. We just have to teach guys how to support and get to a ruck, because we have so many new guys in every team that I coach, whether it's men or if it's, unless I'm at the top team level. But when I help upstate New York, we're always constantly recruiting new players, and we have to teach them from scratch. So what defense do you recommend in the backs per se? Up and out, or coming up and then trying to pinch in?
Yeah, Joel, very, very interesting. Thank you. Well, I'm gonna try simplify it. The first thing I think about when I think about defense is tackle technique. And I know it sounds very silly and very simplified.
Of course.
And for me, and I've said this and I preach this at every level I've coached at, including senior players, I'll take 15 guys that can tackle more than 15 guys that know system. And that's my first rule. So,
of course, yes. That's actually what I do. I have 4 kids I'm training for the Eagles. I put them in wrestling because we don't have a lot of rugby teams. So I figured if all my kids wrestled, they're state champs in New York, at least I've taught them how to tackle. So I'm with you on that. Of course, that's a great point.
Yeah. So with D, I mean, the interesting thing about it is, one, what are you trying to achieve? So the way I see it is you're trying to put you're trying to put the attack skill set under pressure. And 2, you're trying to get the ball back. So that's how I would think of, if I were thinking about defense, those would be my first 2 thoughts. That's the output process. So what am I trying to achieve? So if I'm trying to just put you under pressure, then it's all good, or you put your skill set under pressure. It's all good to get off the line sort of mindset. If I'm trying to trap you to sort of get you to the edge, and from the edge get hard off the line and put a massive line speed onto you, then that's another way of thinking about it. Then I can go soft to allow you to get to the outside. The New Zealanders used to do that quite well. They sell you a certain picture, they open up for you to go wide, and immediately get wide. One, they blast your ruck out wide, and from blasting your ruck out wide, you get slow ball, and all of a sudden they flood onto you like unbelievably, and they just flood at source. So there's different ways to it depending on what your team strengths are. The one thing I'm just going to say, I'm going to talk about a few principles, because I don't think there's one right or wrong way. The first thing for me that's quite important in D is that you always got to get your players loaded to get off the line. Secondly, you've got to get your guys coming off the line. They can't be watching the game, but they need to come off the line in a connected way. Secondly is the ability to read or to anticipate that text movement, and that's without the ball. a player with the ball is a threat, but I'm always going to be more worried about the guys that don't have the ball, because then they've got the luxury of running different lines and presenting themselves in different ways. Recently, if we're going to talk about the trends, I mean, the current trend is line speed. The guys are coming hard from the outside in, so there's no, the sort of slide and push out or up and out has sort of gone out the window in most of the, I think, the tier one nations. Gotcha. Yeah, what you're seeing a lot of is getting hard off the line, trying to cut most teams or trying to put most teams under pressure to carry and come back on the inside. And, gotcha. And the laws are actually supporting this. The reason why this happens so often is because of the rugby laws. Earlier I spoke about how your skill set determines the quality of your game. The rugby laws have play a major role as well in that. So the breakdowns become a big thing. So what are teams saying? Well, if the breakdown is a big thing, we want to force guys on the inside. We want to force them to carry so that we can contest the ruck. So for most tier one nations, the trends that I'm seeing, and I've seen teams now defending with 14 in the line and one at the back. I mean, the Irish have been doing it for a long time. That's how they beat New Zealand under Joe Schmidt. Now, they were 14 in the line, and the Kiwis still tried to play and still tried to force the game. And they just felt this massive heat all the time. You know, teams are starting to see that, and they, you know, getting into the kick space behind. And again, I'm trying to paint a picture of what's happening at the moment without saying there's one right or there's one wrong. Hi, Colin, I can see you there, mate.
Can I, don't wish to you know, take over. Listening, it's really interesting what you said, but just listening to the questioner, I forgot his name, Joel?
Yes, Joel.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were talking about the fact that many of your players are basically novices. Yes?
Well, I have 3 teams that I help, and well, actually, I play on a team that has no novices, but then I also coach a men's club that has lots of novices in New York City. Yeah. But then I have a team I'm building in upstate with New York, where I have my 10 core players, which are very good, but then we always need 5 more, obviously, which are novices. But we help another team nearby that has 50 players, but they're always going to have 20 novices each season. So yeah, we always have a bunch of novices in America. Yeah. That's definitely true. And my last question was also, I noticed on when coach said line speed, and that's what my Super League team, Old Blue New York, would always teach, you know, we have good coaches from foreign countries, line speed up, line speed up. But when you watch it on TV, it seems like in like the Six Nations, they're always across the line by a yard, while in America, all the refs keep us behind the last foot. And should I be teaching my kids to have just like 1 foot behind the line, behind the last foot, and they can stand a yard forward? Or what is the official rule on that?
You do whatever,
and why do they get away with that?
Whatever that particular referee on the day says, that's what you do.
Yeah, I kind of summed it up, mate. You've got to play the game according to what the laws allow you to do. And I'm not talking in terms of cheating. You've just got to play the game according to what the laws teach you. Right. What you find in the Northern Hemisphere is that the referees they talk about allowing the game to breathe. So they sort of allow that contest, and they allow a little bit of that, I'm not say cheating, but they sort of, you know, if you see a lot of the referees in the Northern Hemisphere, they don't referee the breakdown, they coach the breakdown. You know, leave it, get out, no, get out there, push back, you know, and part of that is they don't really want to go from whistle to whistle. But one of the rules that I've got, and I speak for myself here, Joel, I've always said to the players, you've got to paint a picture to the referee. So, you know, the first guy closest to the ruck, he's got to show everything possible about himself being, you know, being on sides. Gotcha. Because he probably looks at the first 2-3 lines, and, you know, from then on, you're good to go. Gotcha. The same for the AR, if your winger's off sides, what normally happens is the assistant referee will ping your winger or you ping your center. So you've got to pick those cues to say, how do I influence the referee? So if the referee's looking at the ruck, they've got to see the first 2 defenders on side. If the AR is looking at the, you know, the defense line, they've got to see your center and your wingers being on side, and all of a sudden your team's on side, even if you've got a few people sort of cheating and creeping. But I think what works well with line speed D is that you got to get a rolling start. So, you know, if you late on the gun, and what I mean by that is that if you later in the line releases the ball, mate, you're in trouble, because then your line's going to be staggered, and all of a sudden the attack's coming onto you. What you actually want to do is that even if you're slide a step or 2 behind, but you just know when that ball comes out, you just shoot, you onto them.
Right.
that sort of helps you. So you got to win that gun early. I hope that answers you. That helps you.
Oh, yeah,
helps.
definitely.
Okay, brilliant, mate.
And as far as the new players that we have, when we're training them, I try to zero in on just, we have to get I like to teach sevens because then they get involved. A lot of teams will let them play 15s at practice and the winger will stay that way, stay badly as a poor wing for a year. So, I mean, in America, I feel that sevens is key because they are forced to learn how to hit the rucks immediately and get involved. So the more we play sevens, I like to play 2-tag sevens with live rucks. Do you know any other games that could help teach kids quickly?
Yeah, mate, we'll get into the games a bit later, but good questions nevertheless. I think we're going to get into that when I start talking a bit more about training. And it's probably a good platform for us to sort of kiss it, not a follow-up, but probably to find some ways that we can share some information with the rest of the coaches.
Sure, I don't mean to hog the conversation. I'll let everyone else speak. Thank you.
Yeah, it will go on forever and it will take off. Massimo, mate, I'm gonna let you ask the question, and from Massimo, I'm gonna carry on with the presentation. Don't know.
Yeah, sorry, coach. Good morning. I'm from Italy, so it's morning for me too. Don't worry about it. Okay. Brilliant. So just the question that I was asking, going back to the team philosophy, right? So here in Italy, under 18, under 16, or men's or woman senior, usually the team have his own philosophy, right? So every team, depending on the player, have his own philosophy. You bring your own philosophy, or you work with the philosophy of the team. I don't know if you understand the question. What do you mean? The team already have one line, one philosophy. You work with that, and you try to get better with that the player already have, or you told the guys, that's my philosophy, you have to follow that, and that's all.
I see. Thanks, Massimo. That's a brilliant question. She was a bit early in the morning to be hitting me with such deep questions, but
sorry. I don't do anymore. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I had an interesting conversation just based on that. I think it was on Wednesday afternoon. We are going through our preparation for the campaign and our preparation going along, and we're talking about what our first 100 days are going to look like. And one of the conversations we are having was around understanding the environment that you're coming into. So, quite often as coaches, we get hired and we get appointed, and the new broom sweeps clean kind of thinking. It can work, but it's important to, one, understand your player profile, understand what it is that they've been doing and what were they trying to achieve in that process, because it might not have been wrong. They might have gone about it the wrong way. And I don't know if that makes sense. Sometimes you've got a good intent, but you're going about it the wrong way. So it's important for you as a coach to try figure out how you can marry what you believe in. And that's the other part of you as a coach. You're trying to sell. You got to sell to them why your philosophy is better. But not only sell why your philosophy is better, it's probably not going to be easy for you to come in and say, my philosophy is better, so therefore we're going to go with it. What needs to happen is that there needs to be a gradual process of sort of changing their minds. So you got to, again, I keep going back to the thing of showing them the pictures. What are you seeing here? And, they need to do, you can do two things that are part of your philosophy. And as soon as those things start being implemented and they're correct, sooner or later, the players start believing in what you're doing, then that allows you to implement the next thing, and that allows you to implement the next thing. And different teams have got different cultures. I mean, Colin, you guys have just gone through an interesting thing at Quins at the moment with regards to the coaching. I mean, yeah. You're a world-class coach.
You better don't talk about that.
Pardon?
You better don't talk about that, about Italy. That is a mess right now. So don't worry.
No, not Italy. Not Italy. But I mean, I think Colin understands where I'm coming from, because I mean, that Paul there, he's a brilliant and world-class coach. But I don't know the full story. But it seems like there was a clash of philosophies.
Okay, yeah.
He was trying to come in with a certain, from what I'm gathering, again, I'm talking, please, this is not a record. This is just what I'm reading out there. There seems to have been a clash of what he wanted to bring and what the club's culture was about in terms of playing philosophy.
Yeah.
I don't know who's right or wrong in that situation, but all I know that Paul is a quality coach, and I know that Quins are a great club with a great history for playing a certain brand of rugby. So I think those two were not marrying, and from what I gather. And the difficulty with that again, Massimo, is I would just say to you, just know the environment that you're going into, understand your player profile, and then without trying to change everything all at once, you know, you got to have your 3 or 4 non-negotiables as a coach to say, guys, listen, you can play however you want to play, or we can do the things the way you wanted to do them, but these are my 4 non-negotiables. And once those are rolling over and those take over, I think it becomes easier then to put in everything in place, because then people are buying into you. And the other thing is, you've also shown respect for what it is that they've been doing or what they believe was working. You know, and it's good conversations to have, you know, but why do you want to stick to your philosophy? What was it working? Is it because you're in a comfort zone, you don't want to change? Because that could be the reason as well. Again, I'm sorry if I'm not giving you the answer that you're looking for, but I'm just trying.
That's what I was looking for. Actually, it's pretty hard to talk with or speak with your player, because you always like a coach. Always, sometimes you push too much, right? So you don't understand them. You want to push your way, but sometimes you have to, you know, 50-50, like you say, right? So you have to manage the situation as step by step, get in and make your way work. That's the best way. Thank you, coach.
No, brilliant, mate. And listen, if you're coming into any role, and you probably, and there's different types of coaches, so don't think about football style coaches who come in with bucket loads of money and they come in, they can change. You know, that's a whole different mindset. So if you're an international coach at the highest level in the right space, you can come in and do that kind of stuff. But where we are, we dealing with people that love the game, that actually make sacrifices to come to training.
Yeah,
so
that's
you know, they're also trying to enjoy themselves, and they're trying to be the better version of themselves. It's also important to understand where you are in your journey, where your players are in their journey. Yeah, I'm going to take one more if there is one more, but I just want to move on because I actually wanted to show a clip, because we're not talking philosophies. I just wanted to play a video. I'm going to try share. Please let me know if this is playing. I know it might be, if there's a bit of a delay. Can everyone see the screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm hoping this plays well, but I mean, I wanted to sort of slide into these. This is just an interesting, it's a game from 2018. Never mind the teams really. I think the idea here is just to sort of figure out, it's an under 21 Currie Cup final, is to figure out the philosophies of the two teams. We spoke about that, and you know, it's going to lead us to other things. I'm going to play the first few minutes. Is it playing clearly?
Jittery, but we can see it.
Okay. Sorry about that. It's quite a big. I'm going to play on for about a minute. So there's a white team and there's a blue team. Blue team's now got the ball. This is an under 21 game, as it's 21-year-olds in the Currie Cup final. I'm not sure, a few of them have gone on to play some big rugby, or they're playing some big rugby at the moment in the last year or two. I'm about to stop it at some point. It's almost there, please bear with me. Yeah, stop the share. So interesting. I don't know if people could see that clip quite regularly. So if you're looking at the team in blue, I mean, just randomly, it's quite clear that they've got an attacking mindset. They want to have a go. That's them. They played 12 phases. They weren't going anywhere, but they weren't willing to concede that. So that philosophy is, I mean, it stands out. It's pretty clear in terms of that. So you would say it's a team that's wanting to probe. They've got a certain attack shape in terms of where they're trying to move you. I think I don't know if we're all seeing the same picture. You know, you might have a different opinion on that. And it's quite interesting. They kept the ball for 12 phases there, although they were going nowhere. So I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Again, it's not judging. It's just to really get into the philosophy of the team. You know, so I'm showing my face as I'm doing this, but I want to move it on again. I'm going to keep chatting. So onwards it goes. Move it on there. They return the kick. The team in white doesn't want to play rugby. Do you guys agree?
Territory.
They just don't want to play rugby. Somebody said territory. Is that what you call it?
Well, that's what they call it. They just want to come down in there and.
Yeah, so the team in white is just not interested in playing rugby. If you can see that. So
yeah.
And it keeps coming back to this philosophy thing that we're talking about. If you watch the first 2 minutes of this game, it tells you a certain picture in terms of what you're thinking about. But for me, what's also interesting, I see there's a lot of stuff in the chat. I can pick it up there. Okay, team in white are competing in the breakdowns. One player feet to make tackles. Spearing white, expose spaces. That's good. Interesting there that no one said anything about the team in white having a good defense system. You know, so they were able to keep the other team out. So is that a philosophy? You know, so that's, again, it's part of the conversation. So I'm just
they don't get scored on, I guess.
There are 4 or 5 main philosophies. Like once an Australian coach told us, we're not going to kick because we want everyone to think we're going to always come back and support. But he would whisper to the fly up, you know, you're allowed to kick, but don't tell anyone. But at the same time, another coach we had at Super League would have us always go the same direction because Americans are a hard time folding around on defense. So we would always outnumber them eventually by going the same direction. You know, pod right, backs right. Another philosophy is all fastball that comes out of the ruck would go to the backs. All slow ball would go to the center or to the main pod. Those are just the 3 that I know. But like, what would be another main philosophy? Or I know I'm put you on. Or is there anything? I'm sure there's tons of philosophies.
Mate, there's 5 million ways to skin this rugby cat, and I think that's what makes it beautiful. You know, I wouldn't get caught up in one. The one thing that I'm trying to get out, and the big message I'm trying to get out of this, and maybe I should have started to say, some feedback. The big message that I'm trying to get out of this particular session is to say, whatever your philosophy is, your training and your thinking has to marry to that. Whatever you're doing, which is from your philosophy, your stats and whatever you're measuring in your statistics has to marry to that. So that's the first thing, that's my first sort of mindset around that kind of thing. Because a lot of coaches have got philosophies, yet when they train, you know, you don't see that coming out, and the training is not conducive to that philosophy. You know, and then when they do the analysis, that is not coming out as well. So that's really what I'm trying to get at, because, wow, there's just a lot of philosophies, and none of them are wrong, because Dave Rennie plays beautiful rugby in Australia. Michael Checker wanted to have a crack in Australia, and they're not wrong, because that's the Australian way of playing rugby. You know, there's just no wrong. In South Africa, as I said to an Irishman yesterday, there's nothing more beautiful than seeing an Afrikaans player come around the corner to have a big carry. Mate, it's, you know, it's not pretty for everyone, because the New Zealanders will tell you, they don't have skill, they just brute force, partly because they don't want to be facing that. You know, would you rather have Eben Etzebeth passing the ball around or having a go at you? You decide what's the easiest one. But yeah, there's different ways. I'm just going to leave it there. I'm going to try and get one.
Which team won that game?
Pardon?
Which team won that game?
We're gonna come back to that. We're gonna come back to that. We're gonna come back to that.
I'm jumping ahead.
Yeah. So I was here, we were here, so we went through all of these. And as we move into the team's philosophies, I just spoke about the outcome is to, for me, the biggest thing is whatever it is that you want to achieve, that has to be indicated in your training, that has to be indicated in your strategy, and that has to be indicated in how you analyze or assess the game. So looking at that, there's a few things that I sort of look at. One, it's where do you play your rugby from a philosophy point of view? Are you a team that wants to, if you're a team that wants to kick and have good access from the back 40, good. What do you need? I need a good chase formation or chase organization. I need a good full D formation, within a certain time, because if that's part of your philosophy, then you and again, we're a kicking team. That's a philosophy. Somebody said, what's the difference between a philosophy and a strategy? We're a kicking team. We're a team that puts other teams under pressure. Okay, so what does that look like in strategy? No, we exit from our back 40. That's a strategy. Our chase organization, this is what it looks like. And this is who we put in those places. That's strategy. We want a full defense formation within 5 seconds. That's a strategy. Your philosophy could be having, all-out attack. We want to run the ball from everywhere because we need the skill sets and we want to offload. Okay, what is our shape? The shape is your strategy. The ideas that you take into that. So if we want to attack, are we always loaded to play if we want to get to space? If we talk about space and having different shapes, where can the shape take us? And what do we need to do for the shape to get us there? That's a strategy. I think Colin spoke about territory. I'm not a big fan of territory because I just think you're getting in somebody's half. I'm a big fan of set piece territory because the more line outs and scrums I can get in your half, the more chances I've got of winning the game. Just, putting it out there. That's my sort of thinking. I spoke about defense earlier with somebody. I said, if we speak about a team's philosophy, we can look at the team in white and say, well, defense is their philosophy. Why? They're desperate to get the ball back. They organized, they defended for 12 phases without giving away any penalties. So I hope I'm sort of painting that picture in terms of how you're trying to marry your philosophy and then what does it look like in terms of strategy. Philosophy can be one or two things, but then the strategy is the detail that goes into that. Slightly coming back to your point, I think Joel was trying to make there to sort of say, there's different ways to skin this cat, but you've got to know what it actually looks like when you get out into the field and what it is that you're trying to achieve. I'm going to skip this quickly and go to this. And I'm saying here, it is important if we're talking about philosophies and strategies that we paint clear pictures for our teams. They've got to know, and again, it's a collective effort. They need to know where are they trying to go, but it's not enough to know that I'm trying to get to one place. It's important to know how to get to that place. One of the things I always say to the boys whenever I have team meetings, which is quite interesting, most of them enjoy a good McDonald's from time to time. So they pretty much all know where McDonald's is, so especially the props. So you come into a team meeting and, before I sort of present our philosophy and what we want to do and where I see certain things, I always say to them, well, where's the McDonald's? Where's the nearest McDonald's? No, sir, it's on Church Street on the corner of this. Oh, what's near there? No, it's by the garage or the petrol station, etc. Okay, tell me how to get there. Give me step-by-step directions of how to get there. And all of a sudden, no, what do you mean from where? Well, from where I'm standing. Tell me exactly where I'm walking, where I need to turn, how many meters I need to walk, what to look out for. And that for me is when you're starting to marry your philosophy into your structure, so into your strategy. And I'm hoping as we're moving with that sort of makes some sense. I'm going to go back to the game again because everyone's quite interested in the game. I'm going to try to share my screen. And who won this game? Please tell me if it's playing on your side.
Yeah, by the way, sorry, just before you continue the video, and just for the sake of time, because you know it is pretty late in some parts of the world, if we can get Marcus next, and then after him, Colin.
Yeah, brilliant. Right? I'll get into that after the video, you say.
Yeah. As soon as you're done with your presentation, if we can just get to Marcus and then Colin, because they have some questions as well.
Okay, brilliant.
Okay, thank you.
So there we go. This is the first time the white team has had ball. Okay, so they've lost that ball. Doesn't look too good for the white team at the moment. Okay, blue team has got ball. They messed it up. I think we all agree that the white team hasn't had much ball and not a whole lot has happened thus far in the game. I mean, and we know which team's got the intent to attack. It's an advantage. I don't want to bore you guys with this, but it's quite clear. I mean, there's not a whole lot going on with this white team. So, but 8 minutes into the game, as we can see, I mean, the white team's got 3 points on board. Nothing there. They get the ball back. And again, for me, it's just about the pictures that we're going to paint. And then Colin spoke about territory earlier. Again, they're striving for that. That's their game. Pin these guys back. So, and it's an interesting game because as it's unfolding, you can see where this is going. 6-0. Scoreboard pressure is building on the blue team. That's at all the game. I'm going to show these last two clips and then we're going to move on, guys, to those questions, please.
Yep.
Sorry, I get excited, then I start talking and we start chatting, but I'm really trying to drive home the message as to, you know, it's important to know your team and to know your team's DNA and to understand what strategy you can employ. You know, there we go. They've kicked possession away again. That good defense is no longer in place now. So, I mean, the blue team is really good. Their attack's organized and it's phenomenal, actually. It's unbelievable.
This isn't the team you coach, is it, by the way?
Which one? The blue team. No, not at all.
I'm only teasing.
I wish I could coach him.
I'm only teasing.
This is a secret advertisement.
No, not at all. I wish I could. I wish I was the team. But you remember I spoke about the white team defense, and again, I'm just trying to drive home a message here.
Pressure.
All of a sudden, look at the score. And that's a message I'm trying to drive home about philosophies. I mean, that's coming back to Joel's point. You know, it's 13-0, and there's only been one team playing rugby. I think we all agree with that. You know, I could be wrong, and I'm going to fast forward it to my very last clip, because this will be interesting. Kickoff, blue team gets it back. They're keen to play again, and I mean, they're on the front foot again. 15 minutes into the game, there's just been one team in this game. There you can see the shape is beautiful. There's a plan in terms of what they're trying to do, where they're trying to go. They get a penalty reward there. Eventually, relentlessly, they take the 3 points. Fast forward. Sorry for this. So this was a line out from 20 points into the game. I think I could be wrong. This is the third time that the white team has been in the blue team's half. By the way, he scored a similar try for Quins this weekend, Colin.
Yeah, I know. I saw it.
Yeah, very similar try. I wonder where they stole it from. Yeah, take it back to 20. So I'm not going to bore you any further with this particular clip. I'm going to quickly address. I think Joel asked the question there, so I'm going to address that within 2 seconds, Joel, without trying to steal too much time here. And then we'll pretty much be done. Then we can get to the questions. I'm not far with my slide presentation, so there's, I think we're close to. Getting there.
I didn't have any questions, Coach. I just was asking.
No,
about
I know you just wanted to know. I know you just wanted to know who won. So.
Oh no, that was someone else. Sorry.
Okay, sorry, was that not you?
No.
But long of the short, the white team won by 50 points. 50 points to 10. So
do you think it's because is it more tiring to play offense, Coach, or is that one of the reasons?
Mate, if you watch that game, I wish I could show you. They actually ran the blue team ragged, and in terms towards they ran them ragged on attack. But what was happening is that it's about your efficiency, and that's what I'm trying to get at. It's about efficiency with and without ball, and using your opportunity. So the one team was phenomenal in attack shape. I'm not saying this right or wrong. They're phenomenal in attack shape. They had a good shape. They're organized. They knew where they were trying to punch, but they weren't going anywhere, to be precise. And they kept on expending a lot of that energy in the same space. And from error, they got punished. From error, they got punished. I mean, you got to look at the tries of the blue team. They were really, outside of the first try, the tries of the white team, very well constructed tries, by the way. I think they scored 3 from set piece, where it was just set piece plays, and you don't see that often these days. Their third try in the same half, the 10 just glided through, from a scrum. So it's not about, you can talk about energies, etc., and those things are important. What I'm trying to get at is you've got to understand what your team looks like and your team's profile, and then you got to figure out how are you best effective. So when you start putting your team together and you're training together, what are you trying to look like on the weekend? And remember, it comes back to my question: what are the things that are going to make you win the game? So, and that's why I'm throwing these questions at everyone as part of the conversation. Philip, I'm going to let you go ahead. I know Marcus has something to say and somebody else has got something to share.
Sure, thanks. How you doing, Coach? One of the issues that, at least probably most Americans are plagued with is that a ton of raw talent, but very low experience and rugby IQ. So the scenario would be, let's say you had a team and you had 5 or 6 players who were, with good experience, high rugby IQ, and the rest of your team were just raw athletes. What would you say your top 5 positions to place those players at, and why?
Awesome. The current theme, or the fancy theme at the moment, people talk about the spine of the team, which is, in normal circumstances, it would be a tight head prop, mainly not for the brains, but they just anchor the scrum. Yeah, but I think your hooker, your hooker, your 5 lock, your number 8, your 9, your 10, your 15. They're mainly, and I think one of your centers could probably be part of the spine if you got 5 guys, but I would like to think the reason for that is that those are the guys that are probably quite involved in seeing the game and bringing certain aspects of the game together. So from that perspective, your 8 controls the base of the scrum. He links well with your 9. From between your 9 and 10 and your 15, they generally the guys that have got a bigger picture and a full picture of the game, and they control processes within that. So most likely the guys that are going to touch the ball more than anyone else, they're the guys that will probably end up making more decisions than anyone else. So that is really from where I think it comes from. Once those are your key drivers, and it's not a stat, it's not anything like that, but generally, if you talk about the best teams in the world, you know, everyone sort of starts looking and saying, well, who's their hooker? Who's their number 5 lock? Who's their 8? I mean, you know, you don't have to go far. I think the All Blacks had their best. You know, it was Cody Taylor. It was, I think, Brody or Whitelock. It was Kieran Reid. You know, Aaron Smith was the best in the world. They had Dan Carter at some point. You know, Ben Smith doesn't get much kudos, but he was really, you know, those type of guys. So, and you look at South Africa going into the World Cup with the type of players they had. I mean, they had stars across the pitch, just in certain positions. There's certain guys that were just standard. You know, if you don't have a world-class fly half, your chances of winning a World Cup or playing good rugby in general are slim to none. So those would be the positions I would kind of look at, because I had a coach at a very interesting sort of thing. You know, he said to me, and you got to figure out who your generals are and who your soldiers are. So, you know, your generals need to dictate how the game goes and make the decisions, and they need to be a lot closer to getting the ball and, you know, bringing the soldiers into play. So I'd see it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Your 5 lock runs line arts. I mean, it doesn't really matter in essence, but your 5 lock is mainly the guy that runs your line arts as well. I didn't mention that. So he's quite important in that as part of your spine, because, you know, you got to win your ball to play. Philip, there was another question. Are you happy with that, Marcus?
Yes, thank you.
I think it was Coach Colin who had a comment, I think.
Did I? I heard you say Collins. I assumed it was somebody else that come on, Colin. I'm just, no, it's excellent so far. Carry on. Sorry.
I think Jack had his hand raised. Jack, you can unmute and ask a question. Jack?
Yeah, Coach, how you doing? Thank you very much for your time, actually, too. My question was, actually, I asked in a different way, but can you have 2 different philosophies, one that the coach actually has, and then one for the team, as the team could probably be changing as years go on, but you as a person having a philosophy that you come in that you just believe in as a coach? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm following, and I don't want to be hard-stead and hard-fast here, but I don't believe so. I don't think you can have 2 different philosophies. I think you can have different game strategies. You know, you can have multiple game strategies, but I don't think you can have different philosophies. I think that creates confusion. Yeah. So
maybe to clarify, not different philosophies, but 2 philosophies. I think I asked the question the wrong way. Like,
yeah, I hear you. Yeah, okay, I'm with you. I think it's links to what Massimo asked earlier. I don't believe so. I'm just really talking from personal experience. I think that creates. Okay. I think there can be a conversation around how you can marry those 2, but at the end of the day, and I always use this example, you know, every house needs a father, and I think it's important that there's direction from somewhere. That's just, again, that is my take on it. I'm a big believer in that, because ultimately somebody's going to take responsibility for something. You know, it's, you know, and I say that because, you know, your kids are your kids. If they could, they'd have, you know, they could have chocolates for breakfast, and they'd have chocolates for lunch, and, you know, and then if, you know, chocolates for dinner. It doesn't, you know, there's nothing wrong with chocolate, but you got to find that balance, because they're going to lose their teeth. So at some point there needs to be somebody that says the buck stops here. I hear you. You like chocolate, absolutely. After dinner time, we're going to let you have chocolate. Good for you. Weekend, have all the chocolate you want. So we're finding some sort of compromise without losing that leadership. You know, and players are the same, by the way. You know, because when it all goes pear-shaped to some degree, I'm not really trying to, you know, bring out bad vibes here, but when it does go a little bit sideways, then it's quite key to sort of find that balance. You know, and somebody always needs to bring them back to something. There needs to be something that everyone comes back to. It's just my opinion.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Brilliant. Brian says, what advice would I give to an aspiring coach about developing their philosophy? Brian, I think you got to watch a lot of rugby and figure out what you like. I think you got to ask yourself, when your team runs out, what type of team do you want running out there? Or what do you want people to say about that team? And again, it needs not be complicated. It needs not be complicated. I'm a pressure person. I'm a pressure coach. So I'm big on putting pressure without the ball, putting pressure with the ball. So I speak about that as part of my philosophy quite a lot. So what is it, what is pressure? Well, if we kick off, we're gonna catch you man and ball. We're gonna put your set piece we're gonna put your breakdown under pressure in your 22. Now I'm talking game strategy. So my philosophy is a pressure team because I want to be the best without the ball and the best with the ball. And what does that look like in terms of strategy? Well, I like a restart, and I like using a restart because it's probably the part of the game that's quite ignored. And I think that's I don't think it's where the game starts. So I'll say to the team, if we get a chance, coach, what do we do at kickoff to the captain? Mate, I think you should kick off. Why? Well, we're going to catch the man and ball in their 22. We're going to put massive pressure at the breakdown. We're going to come hard at the line, force them to kick out, and that gives us set piece. Okay, what do we do from set piece? We're going to do everything possible to play for 3 points because they must know we mean business. Whether you're mauling, whether you're putting that pressure to somehow get into a position to score a point. And pressure is different, right? Because pressure is about where they give you the space, and pressure is about where they're weakest. So our pressure points on attack is not the same every week. So sometimes you want to go direct, sometimes no, they got short guys and they're not good in the air, we're going to go aerial. Okay, we've got the skill set, we can get around them, so let's put pressure there. So that's not the strategy, but we're putting pressure nevertheless. And first penalty we get, no, mate, we're not going to tap and go. I'm not saying it's wrong. We're just going to take 3 points because they must know we put business. We mean business. Okay, but coach, what happens now? Okay, they're going to kick off to us, Brian. We're going to catch the ball again, and we're going to return it long because we're going to give them set piece on the halfway. It's neutral ground. The pressure's back on them to do something with that ball. So I'm trying to explain where my strategy. There's my philosophy, which is the pressure game, but what does it look like in terms of strategy? I hope that makes sense.
It does. Thank you so much.
Yeah. How else can we put pressure? We want to speed up the game. So we're going to kick out. We must be first to the lineouts all the time. We must be first to the scrums all the time to set. We got to put the ref under pressure and put them under pressure to speed up the game because I know that in the 50th minute, they're not going to be with us. They won't keep up with us. But speeding up the game is one thing. You need to be fit for that and you need to train that way. So that means, unlike what I'm doing now, I can't be talking a lot of training sessions. The coaches, some of the players used to call me walkthrough because they knew in the morning, we'd come in, we'd have a meeting, we'd go walk through our session, detail, this is what we're going to do here. Okay, what happens if it goes wrong? Because once we get into the session, even if it's 30 minutes, I don't want to be talking, because they've got to get that match intensity. They've got to get that. And what am I analyzing them on? Pressure. Why did they get the kickoff? And there was, they still had 2 seconds to decide to make a pass or to carry. Why weren't you the man and ball? That's pressure. So they know that. That's what it looks like. Are we putting pressure at the breakdown? No, we're not. Are we putting pressure? If we got ball in hand, I don't measure a lot of things. I really don't. Are we getting over the gain line advantage? Are we getting quick ball? Those are the things that I measure. Are we getting over the advantage line? Are we getting quick ball? And if we get quick ball, because every team wants quick ball, everyone says quick ball, then you look at them, you say, but they're not ready to play. So why do you want quick ball? So the third thing I measure is, are we in a position to play? Those are my team's measurements. Of course, set piece is important and all of that, but we measure that too. But on attack, advantage line, quick ball, ready to play. My job, I need to give them the skill set to be able to make decisions and execute on the field. And I'm hoping that clarifies it.
And just because we have people asking questions in both the chat and the Q&A, so it's kind of hard to keep track of who's who. So I'm just gonna switch over to the other chat. We have Martha Evans from Washington, D.C. If you want to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question. Martha, are you with us?
Martha, are you with us?
Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha, are you with us? Martha
I don't see it.
Like you might have left. You can. I think you might just want to ask her question.
Coach, I had a question. If you you said you like to get set pieces in the other side a lot, and I know my coach also taught us kick deep and they go for a line out. That's one way to get it, a line out there. But what are other ways we could get set pieces in their side?
I'm just trying to think now. Well, you got to maybe try force them to play. Yeah, it's about the only way I can think of. I mean, again, what is set piece? Because people think line out. For me, kickoff receive is a set piece. So I see that as part of your set piece. So if I can pin you there, you're going to kick out again. I'll get that. Normally, I try and make sure as much as I want the team to kick, they can't kick on their terms. They have to kick on my terms. So if we can force them into an error there, that means we can get a scrum out of that. Because most teams are quite uncomfortable trying to play in their half anyway. They're trying to get out, but force them to play because they're not geared to play from out of their half. So force them to have that extra pass, force them to try something that's out of the ordinary because they're not getting in shape in time. Yeah. And other teams will have a go because you're going to play the Kiwis. They're going to have a go at you from their own 22. So, and they're going to test you because they get to play that way. That's how they designed, and nothing wrong with that. So when you play the Kiwis, I'm not going to drop 3 at the back. You're going to make sure that you got a 14 front line because otherwise you're going to be, 100 meters later or 10 seconds later, you 100 meters behind your pole saying, what happened, boys? You're supposed to put them under pressure.
Right.
Yeah.
They're also kicking short kicks in the Six Nations a lot. I noticed like they're not giving them much time. Little kicks, little squibs. That's a good way to keep pressure, I guess. Not over kicking.
Well, I'm going to go back to my point about how in the Six Nations, most teams are starting to defend 14-1. And sometimes so there's 14 defenders in the front line with the fullback quite deep, waiting for the contestable kick. So that means there's always space behind that to put pressure. Yeah, and I mean, the bounce of the ball can go anyway. And you got to also figure it out. If I'm running onto the ball against somebody that's turning, more often than not, I should have the advantage, especially in a short kick. Some teams defend 13-2, so the 9 normally plugs the blind side with the fullback. Sorry if I'm now maybe going slightly off the boiler with. I hate talking formations and shapes because
this is great though. Thank you.
I don't think that's what rugby's about. Rugby's about the skills, and that's really what we should be talking. But yeah, some teams will defend a 13-2, which is a fullback and the winger sort of roaming and exchanging positions, and the 9 normally looks after the blind side, trying to put pressure somewhere or trying to cover something. So that leaves you vulnerable because the chip space becomes on again. So, depending on which team you're playing, depending on what they're presenting in front of you, you always got to adapt. And that's the beauty of rugby, right? What are you trying to do ultimately? You're trying to get to space. And what is the easiest and the quickest way to get to space? Believe it or not, actually, in a kicking game is the easiest and the quickest way to get to space, but an effective kicking game. No one wants to watch tennis. That's not what people pay for. That's not how we're going to get kids into the game. At the level I coach at, I actually play a lot of tennis, rugby tennis, that is, because, as you know, if we don't win, we're going to get fired. But generally, that's not what entices kids to play rugby. Every kid wants the ball and they pick it up and they run. But yeah, from a Six Nations point of view, it's really about, at the moment, what I'm seeing a lot of is 14-1 defense systems, 13-2 defense systems, which normally exposes that little space behind the D line.
Thank
you. Philip, I'm going to jump on to share my screen, mate. I know you're probably going to be pressing on me at some point, so I don't want to be. Philip is the.
No. Yeah, I actually just wanted to be cautious of time because 30 minutes past it at this point.
Yeah, so
I'm going to make any final comments, and then we can probably end the webinar.
Yeah, if anybody who has questions, if they can just ask, we'll take 3 more questions, 3 quick short questions from each person, and then we can go to our closing.
Yeah, so I'm going to wrap up now, and as I move on, one of the things I keep talking about, I spoke earlier about how much I'm not really shape and philosophies. This is the picture of the British and Irish Lions, playing, or the New Zealanders playing the British and Irish Lions. For me, this is where the game is at. The Kiwis play a fast game. They do all these amazing things, but the quality of, and I just want to talk about these pictures. I'm looking at the quality of the presentation. I mean, that's basic. That's basic. Then these are the basics that we need to make our players understand. You know, I'm looking at the clean here. You know, Aaron Smith is still approaching the ball there, so not much is happening. But if you look at this picture here, again, the presentation is good. There's no pressure at the breakdown, but he's not in position. Vunipola is still getting himself ready. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, yeah, I can counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players in this area. So that leaves them vulnerable elsewhere. And he's loaded, he's ready to play. That means he's got players ready to play. And it comes back to my thing about, you can have a philosophy, but how does your strategy marry that philosophy? And vital for me. I look here, Aaron Smith again is ready to play. Look at the quality of the placement. They're pretty good over that vantage line. Look at the quality of the breakdown clean. The 9 is picking the ball up. You know, he's obviously going same side, but these guys, everyone here is loaded to play for something. They're all ready to play. Okay, the proppies are a bit late here, but look again, look at the British and Irish Lions still working back in position. And in this point of view, it probably has no impact on the game because the game is going in the opposite direction. But when I talk to my players, when I'm coaching, these are the type of pictures I want to show them. And these are the type of things that I would show them naturally. Say, well, tell me what you see, you know, because we don't really focus on this, on the small things. We coach it, but when we come to the game time, we don't focus on these things because these are, and for me, this is where you win the game, doing the little things well. This is where you win the game, being able to carry well, the best teams, the best players in the world. This is the stuff they do well. You know, just for our players to understand why it's important to do these things and that your philosophy to get it right, this is where you got to win the battle. Whenever I'm coaching, again, I showed you guys a video, but if I were coaching a team, before I went into a video session, somebody spoke about different strategies. I'd be looking at these pictures and saying to them, well, what do you see here? How are they geared up? You've got the ball. You know, not that anyone is winning this contest at the moment, but where's the space? Okay, doesn't matter. Do you think you can get through them? Or yes, we can. Why? Well, we're bigger and stronger. Okay, cool. So then that's going to be our shape because we've got 3 guys there. We've got 3 guys there we can play. No, but the space could be out wide. Okay, are we going to be able to get the ball wide with that D line? No, coach, we can't. Okay, how else can we get there? No, maybe play out the back, get a kick into that space. But that's how I would sort of coach. And I think it comes back to Coach Marcus's point and somebody else's point about trying to teach your kids how to think about the game. You know, what pictures are they seeing? Because that will give you a cue as to, you know, how they think about the game. Then you can also prompt them to start getting better at seeing certain pictures in a game. I mean, these are different clips: 3:27, 9:07, 54:17, 4:40. And we keep seeing the same pictures. That's Richie Mwanga in the end. Okay, geez, is there space there for us? Yes, there is space. But where do we keep going? We keep running there. How can we get to that space? Is the space? That's a last defender. Jeez, where are we going? We're running into where they want us to go. Because if there's the clip, where's the heat? Look at these guys. I mean, they're loaded, man. I think, Joel, it comes back to what I was saying to you. They've got a running start. Look at them. They're going to put massive pressure. And you know what's coming. They're going to smash this. They're going to smash this. So how do we actually beat that? So, and the more we can have these conversations with our players, by the way, the better, because then you're starting to show them these pictures. You're starting to ask them what they think. They see these pictures. Then you can, we've seen these pictures. We've discussed it. We've got alignment and we've got agreement about what we see. And it's also a good teaching opportunity. How do we take these into the practice game? Also into practice? How do we then say, when we start measuring ourselves on the weekend, you know, if we get 3-4 kicks into this space, good for us. What are they going to do? They're going to start spreading out and hopefully they're going to start thinking about covering that space. Okay, what happens if they cover that space? Coach, great opportunity for us to play through them. Brilliant. Again, you know, you didn't have to tell them a whole lot of things. You just painted pictures and you painted scenarios for them. So that's philosophy being marrying with strategy. I'm not saying you can't run, you can run, but you know, but where are we trying to go and how are we going to do that? I stole some of these things, as I say, stole them. I got them, I think, from some from a different coach who was doing a presentation. So these points are not mine, by the way. These points here, I'm just claiming that, please. So, but for me, it was quite interesting when I was looking at them in terms of how do I get better? You know, again, he talks about becoming an expert in how to coach. I'm not going to read for you, but for me, the biggest things that keep coming to mind is think about your session content. Think about your structured versus unstructured attack, because what happens the most in the game? This probably happens the most in the game. For me, technique versus gameplay. I spoke again about players need to play. They need to see the pictures a lot, not just running shape the entire time. So you got to present those different pictures and see how they get around to that. But ultimately, your skill set will determine the quality of your play. So these are the things that I see, that I think about. And when you have a philosophy in mind, you really got to think about how that philosophy is going to fit into your strategy and how can you measure that as well. And again, I don't think you need to have a lot of things to measure, but you do need to be measuring some things. The jungle tiger mindset is just a way of trying to get, I think there's a book on that, is really just a way of trying to get, how can I get my player to replicate the game as much as possible in different ways, whether it's 5v5, whether it's just a training session doing something else. How can he get a lot of game repetition in mind? Because sometimes I feel we don't train for the game, or we don't train the game, we train for the game. I don't get, hope that makes sense. You know, I'm going to try and repeat that again in a way that sounds smart, or, you know, yeah, most of the time we train for the game. We don't actually train the game. Yeah, I'm hoping that makes you sound smart. Sorry. And these are the last type of things. I spoke about learning. How do you know that learning is taking place if you don't actually engage the players, if you don't showing them pictures, if you're not asking them questions during the sessions themselves? What good habits are you creating within your team? I showed that picture of the All Blacks at breakdown. For me, that epitomizes what a good habit looks like. Because if those players are doing those small things well, then you're in business. Habits, different scenarios, game intelligence. Again, it comes back to that process. All of a sudden starts driving your results and your success. I tried to get that quickly. We're almost there. So any questions? Thank you so much for your time. It's been brilliant. I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversations. Whenever I present, I really believe that we should engage a lot more in conversation. That's just my way of having a presentation. I think it's quite weird that one person sits on the one side and sort of says, this is the gospel, this is how you should do it. Because I need to understand what your thinking is. I need to know where you're coming from and how you see things.
It's been awesome, Coach. Thank you.
Listen to your team and everyone else. Man, we could have spent about 20,000 hours here, and this we didn't even go into detail, to be quite fair, but I was just really trying to paint a picture, because I thought it's important starting out that we start somewhere, and whoever comes after me, I'm sure you guys are going to get bigger guns to come after me. But those are the people that will give you the meat of this. There'll be a lot of meat because there's so many things about rugby, the technical stuff, etc. But I just wanted to share the idea to say, good to have a philosophy. How does it lead to your strategy? How do you measure it? And how do those two keep working together and keep coming back to each other? There's no right or wrong. I'm just, I'm so humbled again that I've had an opportunity to talk to you guys. I'm just blessed and so privileged that I've actually, I'm just sitting on the other side talking rugby with a whole bunch of people from different countries. This is what dreams are made of, and for me anyway. So when I was asked to come speak, I mean, in Kissa said, it's 1:30 in the morning. I'm like, mate, I'm game. I can't wait to I can't wait to be out there chatting to people. And I learn as you ask questions as well. So I'm going to shut up very shortly, but thank you for taking the time. I don't take it for granted that you could have been listening to so many other people and yet so many other things to do. So I'm just thankful that you also could take the time to spend and share. By the way, I coached the white team in that game.
Colin was waiting for that. Colin was waiting for that, right?
Absolutely.
Believe it or not, it's the reason I spoke about that is because if you look at the team, I mean, it's Tyron Green, it's Wandisi Milan, it's Jenny Lombard. They're some of the best ball runners in South Africa. I'm not claiming them by any stretch of imagination. They're just talented players, and they've got amazing ability. Some of them are going to go far, but it was just to show you how we still kept to our philosophy of attack and running and having a go, but we had to change our game strategy. Yeah. So.
Yeah, Buffs, I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Man. Appreciate your friendship over the years, and appreciate your time. Brian and Marcus, thank you so much for for just partnering with us. Colin, appreciate you coming on. All the guys from Italy, amazing. I'm gonna leave this time to Pretty. My team, thank you so much. You guys were amazing, except for Philip, but you guys were amazing. Pretty, go for it.
Yeah, thanks, Cassette. Thank you so much, Coach Bafana. You gave such an excellent presentation. We really appreciate you answering all the questions and staying up well past 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning where you are. So yes, thank you so much. Thank you to all the attendees. And with that, I think we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm happy if I don't know, I'm happy to stay on if anyone wants to stay and ask, I mean, like 1 or 2 questions after this. I'm quite happy to address that. So I'll probably, stay on, but those that do need to leave, absolutely. Thank you guys. I'm just, again, so humbled and so thankful that I could, be here. Thank you.
Really. Thank you, Coach.
Yeah, anyone who wants to connect with Coach, just reach out to us. We can, make the